This real forest drove people insane, and no one dares to return. It was a bright summer day in 1906 when Dr. William Clark and his wife, Harriet, drove slowly through the scenic hills of Litchfield County, Connecticut. This rural part of the state, known for its winding roads and deep forests, was a world away from their bustling life in New York City. Dr. Clark was a respected oncologist and professor at Columbia University. Their life in Manhattan was successful but chaotic, and they longed for a peaceful retreat, somewhere calm, remote, and grounding. That's why they were in Litchfield. It was the opposite of the city. Quiet, secluded, perfect. As they explored, the couple came across a beautiful old covered bridge. After crossing it, they spotted a rugged road leading up a hillside covered in dense, shady forest. They didn't know where the road led, but the view was so enchanting, they decided to follow it. Soon the road became too rough for their car. Dr. Clark pulled over, and the couple continued on foot. As they stepped into the forest, the sunlight disappeared under a thick canopy of leaves. The air turned cool and fresh. At first it was silent, but then the woods seemed to wake up. Birds chirped, insects buzzed, and animals rustled nearby. They came upon a field of wild apple trees, where a deer stood peacefully eating fruit straight off the branches. A bit further, vibrant flowers, roses, lilacs, bitter tansy, lined the trail. They crossed sparkling brooks, and high above, spring water trickled down the rocky mountain. When the sunlight finally pierced the canopy, the ground shimmered. The rock here was filled with mica, a mineral that catches light and glows like glitter. Owls hooted softly from the shadows, and instead of sounding ominous, felt welcoming, like a greeting. The forest felt enchanted. By the time they made it back to the car, the Clarks had made their decision. This forest would be the site of their second home. They returned to New York and quickly put in the paperwork to purchase 1,000 acres. The land had a name, Dark Entry Forest, so called because its thick tree cover and surrounding mountains kept it in shadow almost all day. What they didn't realize was that the land they bought held more than just beauty. It held the remnants of a long-abandoned town, Dudleytown. At first glance, the ruins scattered through the forest, crumbling stone walls and old foundations, seemed charming. The Clarks saw them as quaint relics of a forgotten past, but the locals knew better. When Dr. Clark asked around for help building his new home, every contractor turned him down. No one gave a clear reason, but it wasn't about money. The truth was, they were afraid. Afraid of Dudleytown. Dudleytown was settled in the mid-1700s and grew quickly. By the late 1700s, however, tragedy struck over and over again. The Carter family, new to the town in 1759, lost 6 members to cholera. The survivors fled to New York, where they were massacred during a Native American raid. Others in Dudleytown began to experience hallucinations, insanity, and mysterious deaths. One man, Tanner, went mad after the unexplained death of another man in his home. His neighbor Abel soon reported seeing creatures lurking in the woods before descending into madness himself. General Herman Swift, a Revolutionary War hero, lost his sanity after his wife was struck by lightning. An unknown epidemic in 1813 wiped out many more. By the late 1800s, only the Brophy family remained, and soon they too were gone, their livestock dead, their home burned to the ground, and the patriarch vanished into the forest, never seen again. Locals believed the land was cursed. That's why no builder dared help Dr. Clark. But he was undeterred. A practical man raised on a New Jersey farm, he chose to build the home himself. Over the next several months, he traveled from New York to the forest each weekend. He cleared trees, milled the lumber, and built a rustic 2-story cabin. He piped in water from a nearby spring, and even constructed a moss-lined swimming pool beside a trout-filled brook. By Thanksgiving, the cabin was complete. The Clarks spent the holiday there, calling it their little slice of paradise. For years, they visited the home every summer and holiday. But in 1918, everything changed. That summer, Dr. Clark was called back to New York for a medical emergency. Harriet was upset about being left alone in the woods, but he promised to return quickly. And he did, within 36 hours. But when his train pulled into the station, Harriet wasn't there to meet him. Feeling a deep unease, Dr. Clark walked back into the forest. As he passed under the dark canopy, the familiar hooting of owls, normally calming, now felt menacing. The deeper he went, the louder they got. When he reached the cabin, the front door was ajar. He rushed inside, just as a high-pitched maniacal laughter echoed from the second floor. Frozen in place, he tried to process what he was hearing. It wasn't laughter from joy. It was wild, inhuman. Realizing it had to be Harriet, he bolted upstairs. The sound was coming from their bedroom. He flung the door open. In the corner was Harriet. She was on the floor, curled in a ball, fists clenched, eyes wide and unblinking. Her mouth hung open, too wide, and the laughter was pouring out of her, though her body didn't seem to be producing it. Her chest barely moved. She stared directly at him, and the laughter kept coming, unnatural and endless. Dr. Clark, terrified, fled the cabin. Whatever happened in those 36 hours shattered Harriet's mind. Some say she spent the rest of her life in an asylum. Others claim she returned to New York and later took her life. Either way, she was never the same. To this day, Dudleytown remains abandoned and off-limits. It's illegal to visit, though some still sneak in. Many report strange sensations, sudden cold, invisible hands pushing them, shadowy figures in photos that weren't visible in person. In the 1970s, famed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren declared the entire area demonically possessed. As for the Clarks, they never returned to Dark Entry Forest. And maybe, after what Harriet saw in the woods, that was the only sane decision left. The cabin that vanished. When we were kids, our parents would sometimes go away for the weekend, and our Uncle Ron would babysit us. He never had kids of his own, but he genuinely loved being around us, so he was always up for it. One Friday night during a heavy snowstorm, my two brothers, my older sister, Uncle Ron, and I were watching Titanic together. The power flickered at one point and knocked out the VCR, so we had to rewind and find our spot again. Not long after, Uncle Ron dozed off in his chair, and we let him sleep while we kept watching. It was at the scene where Rose is running with the axe to save Jack when one of my brothers came back from the bathroom, stopped by the back door and said, "Guys, come look at this." We all ran over and saw it, a single set of footprints in the snow. They started at the back door, veered toward one of the windows, then disappeared into the yard and woods beyond. My brother also swore he heard the doorknob rattle. Our sister freaked out and wanted to wake up Uncle Ron. We, on the other hand, were intrigued. I convinced her we wouldn't go far, just follow the trail for a bit. She gave us a dirty look and went back to the movie. We geared up and headed out into the storm, following the trail through the yard and into the woods. The further we went, the deeper the footprints got. Either less snow was falling under the trees, or whoever made the prints had just been there. Eventually we came across something none of us expected. A cabin tucked deep in the woods. It looked old, dark, and totally unlit. The prints led straight to the front door. We didn't dare knock, but we crept over to one of the windows to peek inside. It wasn't glass, just a mesh screen, and it was too dark to see anything clearly. Then we heard two thumps inside. Something slid across the floor. Before we could react, one of my brothers let out a scream and pointed. Someone was watching us from another window. A face, but it was pitch black, with no visible features. Just darkness. Then came heavy footsteps inside, fast and frantic. The front door burst open. We didn't look back. We just ran. Full sprint. Back through the trail of footprints, back to the house. We weren't chased. At least I don't think we were. The next day, we told Uncle Ron and tried to find the cabin again. We searched the woods for hours. Nothing. No cabin. No footprints. No sign it ever existed. We've lived in that house ever since. Never found that cabin again. It's not on Google Maps. It's like it was never there. Except we all remember it. The Thing in the Pond. My friends S and J and I took a camping trip out near Blue Mountain National Park. The plan was simple: set up camp, drink some beers, play music, and unwind. We set up near a pond, looked peaceful, almost too perfect. By the time I cracked open my second beer, we were deep in conversation and laughing with the speaker playing in the background. Then S suddenly reached over and turned the volume all the way down. "Shh," he said. "Do you see that?" He pointed to the pond. It was hard to see with only the campfire casting a soft glow, but something caught his attention. I couldn't see anything clearly. He whispered, "There's something in the water." I went to the tent and grabbed a flashlight. S said, "Don't," but I turned it on anyway and pointed it toward the pond. We didn't see anything, but we heard it. The sound of something or someone walking in the water. Splash, step, splash. Then silence. I turned off the flashlight. The three of us sat still, frozen. No more music, just listening. An hour passed. Nothing happened. We eventually calmed down, laughed it off, and went to sleep. S and J in one tent, me in another. But once I was alone, I couldn't stop thinking. What did S see in the water? An animal, a person? Then I heard it. A footstep outside. Then another. Closer this time. Slow, deliberate steps circling the tents. I texted S. "There's something." But before I could send anything else, the most blood-curdling scream I've ever heard ripped through the night. It was close. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. It was just raw. Then silence. I didn't move. I just texted, "Dude, we have to run." S responded, "What was that?" Then a minute later, "Coast is clear. Run for the car." I grabbed the keys, unzipped my tent, and sprinted. We all made it to the car, locked the doors, stayed inside till morning. When we came back to pack up, everything was still there. Nothing stolen, nothing out of place. But whatever screamed that night, it was close, and it was watching. Lost in the woods, and not alone. A few years ago, I set out alone for what I thought would be a peaceful day of photography in the woods. I've always loved shooting nature during bad weather. There's something hauntingly beautiful about rain filtering through trees, streams overflowing, everything wet and alive. I wasn't too far from home. Just a small state forest I'd visited before, about an hour's drive. I packed light, camera, tripod, flashlight, some granola bars, a spare pair of pants in case I got soaked. I even checked the weather. Light rain all day, no storms. Perfect. I parked along a dirt pull-off, shouldered my pack, and started hiking into the woods. For a while, everything was calm. I shot some video of raindrops hitting a pond. Slow motion shots of the river rushing between rocks. Close-ups of moss slick with water. I was getting some solid footage. Time got away from me, though. The sky had that weird gray glow that makes it hard to tell how late it is. After a couple of hours, I figured it was time to head back. But the trail was gone. Or maybe I was just off it. I doubled back the way I thought I came, but it didn't look right. Nothing looked familiar. Trees tend to blur together after a while, especially when everything is wet and muddy. At first, I tried to stay calm. Just a wrong turn. No big deal. I'd find the trail. But 20 minutes passed, then 30. Still nothing. That's when the panic started. I began muttering to myself, cursing under my breath, angry that I hadn't left breadcrumbs or marked anything. The drizzle was turning the trail into mush. My boots were soaked. I had no signal. I was completely, utterly alone. Or at least I thought I was. Then I heard it. A single footstep. At first, I thought it might be a deer. I stopped walking and held my breath. The woods were mostly quiet, except for the rain tapping the leaves. Then another footstep. Off to my right. I turned quickly, nothing there. Then again, off to my left. Same sound. Like someone stepping on wet ground and shifting their weight slowly. Deliberately. That's when I realized it was footsteps. Human. Slow. Measured, and they were circling me. My stomach dropped. I stayed frozen, eyes scanning every shadow between the trees. I tried to convince myself it was just the rain playing tricks on me, but then I saw it, just for a second. About 20 feet away, half hidden behind a tree. A man, Not walking, not running, just standing. Half his body visible, like he was peeking out but didn't care if I saw him. He wore a dark blue jacket with the hood up, jeans, and thick black glasses. His face was pale. He was just watching me. Then he stepped back behind the tree, like a kid hiding during hide and seek. I didn't move. My instincts screamed, "Don't run yet." So I started walking calmly, trying to look unfazed, as if I hadn't noticed him. The trees around me got denser. I started hearing the same footstep sounds again, now just behind me. Always behind. Always just far enough that I couldn't see him. The rain picked up, pattering harder on the leaves. I kept checking my phone. No signal. I finally crested a small hill and got one single bar. I stopped under a tree, wiped the screen, and opened Google Maps. It was slow to load, but finally it pinpointed me, and I saw a road less than a quarter mile away. I wanted to cry from relief. Then, from down the slope behind me, I heard a twig snap. I turned. There he was again. That same man, just a little closer this time. But he didn't duck this time. He just stood there. Then from behind the tree, in a low, raspy whisper that cut right through the rain, I heard, "Now." Just that word. Calm, like a command. I broke. I didn't care how wet the slope was. I ran, slipping, sliding in the mud, scraping my arms on branches. I ran harder than I ever have in my life. No looking back. I could hear nothing over my own breath and the rain slapping leaves around me. I burst out onto the roadside like something out of a horror movie. Wild-eyed, drenched, gasping. I looked both ways, and by some miracle, a car was coming. I flagged it down like a lunatic. It was an older guy in a pickup. He rolled down the window and gave me a long look. "You all right?" he asked. I just nodded and said, "I got lost. Can you take me back to the parking lot?" He didn't ask any more questions. Just drove. The whole way I sat there, soaked and shaking, thinking about the man in the woods. That voice. That one word. When I got back to my car, I sat in the driver's seat for a long time before even turning the key. To this day, I don't know who or what that was. I just know I wasn't supposed to see him, and I'll never go into those woods alone again. The thing in the woods, about 6 years ago, during senior year of high school, my friends and I had this tradition. Almost every weekend, we'd stay out all night skating around town and sneaking into creepy places. Abandoned buildings, tunnels, junkyards. Basically anywhere that gave us a reason to feel alive. It was the kind of dumb, fearless energy you only really have as a teenager. None of us had cars yet, so everything was done on foot or on our boards. One night stands out though. It was late, probably around 2 or 3 in the morning. We'd already covered all our usual spots and decided to wander out further than we ever had before. Way out past the old industrial part of town, we came across a heavily wooded area none of us recognized. It wasn't like the other small wooded patches near neighborhoods or trails. It looked deep, still, wrong, somehow. The moment I saw it, I felt off. I can't explain it clearly, but something in my chest just tightened. Like walking into a place where you instinctively know you're not welcome. Of course, my friends were hyped. The idea of going into unexplored woods in the middle of the night, that was exactly our brand of thrill. I, on the other hand, wanted no part of it. I told them I'd skate around the outside and meet them at the gas station on the far end. They gave me some light crap for bailing, but didn't push it. So they went in, and I took the long way around. It took me maybe 30 minutes to skate and walk the loop around the woods. When I reached the other end, I waited at the edge of the tree line for about 15 minutes. No sign of them. I figured maybe they took a slower path or got turned around. So I crossed the street to the gas station and went inside to wait. I asked the clerk if 3 other guys had come through. He said no, so I sat out front and waited. 10 more minutes passed. Then I heard footsteps. Heavy, fast, coming from behind the gas station. Suddenly, all three of my friends rounded the corner in a full sprint. They were sweaty, pale, and completely out of breath. Their eyes were wide, like they had just seen something they weren't supposed to. We all went inside and sat down at the tiny booth near the coffee machines. For a moment, nobody said anything. Then one of them finally blurted out, "There was something in the woods." They told me the story in fragments at first, cutting each other off, still shaken. Somewhere halfway into the woods, they'd heard a noise behind them. Something walking, but heavier than a person. When they turned around, they saw it. They described a figure. Tall, white, vaguely human, but wrong in its proportions. Like if Bigfoot had been bleached. But the part that stuck with them, the part they kept repeating, were the eyes. Glowing. Unnatural. Blood red. They froze for a second, locked in place by fear. Then, whatever survival instinct they had kicked in, and they bolted. They didn't stop running, even when they could hear branches snapping and leaves rustling like something was chasing them. They didn't look back until they reached the edge of the woods, right behind the gas station. And there, across the street, just beyond the trees, it stood. Still. Watching. It never followed them past the woods. It just stared. I'd known these guys since we were little. I'd seen them fake fear before. I'd seen them screw with each other, and with me. But this, they weren't acting. They were shaken to their core. That night ended our all-night wandering. None of us ever suggested exploring again. We hung out, but something about that moment fractured the illusion that we were invincible kids looking for fun. And even now, years later, I think about that figure. What it was. Why it stopped at the edge. And why I didn't go into the woods that night. Because I'm almost sure, if I had, I wouldn't have made it out.